As we have already discovered from the beginning, the Cline land was in trouble. Going back a little, we discovered that Perry Cline's father, Jacob Senior, was swindled. Jacob Cline Senior purchased 5,000 acres that was part of the Green Survey. Cline purchased this land from John Compton, who did not have the right to sell the land. The case went to court in Tazewell County in 1846. Jacob Sr. lost the land to the heirs of John Green of Philadelphia. The Cline family had to vacate the land. The land was later repurchased by the Cline family, and they built their home there. Now, we're going to pick up the story where the death of Jacob Cline Sr. takes place. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this help fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Perry Cline versus Anderson Hatfield. Here's how the story goes. Jacob Cline Senior had died in 1858. The land was then inherited by his two underage sons, Jacob Jr., age 14, and Perry, age 12. Anderson Hatfield claimed that he held a title over the land because of a survey through his father. Two things were wrong with Hatfield's claim. One, a survey does not hand over a title to a land. Two, a clear title to this land can be traced back to 1795, belonging to the Cline family. This was only the beginning of the trouble between Hatfield and the Clines. The next time there was trouble stirred up about the land was in 1867, when Hatfield decided to illegal timber the land. The Cline brothers could not stop Hatfield from trespassing on their land. This led to a formal meeting of sorts in 1869 at the mouth of Grapevine Creek. According to Jacob Jr., Vance Hatfield tried to pry the land away from the brothers by using force at the end of a gun. Perry backed down and sold his half to Hatfield. Jacob Jr. stood his ground and refused. By 1870, Hatfield had built a cabin on the land and moved his family to this new location from Make Creek. In 1871, the land that Hatfield had wrenched from Perry Cline still had not been paid for. However, it is thought that Hatfield bullied Perry Cline to trade properties instead of paying for the land. Cline would not only give up the land he was currently living on, but he would give up the land that was part of his inheritance. Hatfield would give Cline in exchange a piece of land that was located on the Pike County, Kentucky side of Tug River. In 1872, the Hatfield clan had moved once again and was now taking up residence in the Cline homestead. Hatfield takes the Clines to court. Now, this is very interesting. Anderson Hatfield filed a case against Perry Cline in 1872 over a disputed property line. This case would continue until 1876 or 1877, depending on which versions of the events that you adhere to. Here is what happened in the case. It is supposed that Anderson Hatfield could not read or write, or could even survey land. However, this did not stop him from surveying the land that he had gotten from Perry Cline. Furthermore, he would testify in a sworn deposition that he ignored all the land property lines that the state of West Virginia had on their county maps and decided to make his own property lines. After he did this, he filed the lawsuit. The one version of this case states that Anderson Hatfield won the case in an out-of-court settlement with Perry Cline in 1876. However, this claim is disputed in court documents, which claims that the case continued into 1877. During this case, to settle the confusion over the property boundary, a court ordered a survey of the land by a court-appointed surveyor in 1877. After the survey was done, the case basically was dismissed because Anderson Hatfield had failed to continue the action of the court. Basically, Hatfield dropped the case without dropping the case formally. Sometime after the case was finished, Anderson Hatfield subdivided the land and gave his sons, Johnson and Cap, homesteads of their own. Anderson Hatfield would continue to live and conduct the business of the feud on the land at the Grapevine Creek site until bounty hunters came to town. It is interesting that these same bounty hunters were sent after the Hatfield clan by none other than Perry Cline. In the middle of 1888, Hatfield would move away from Grapevine Creek to settle in a much safer area. Perry Cline versus James Vance Senior. This information comes from the research done by Deborah Autry, as talked about in the source named Truth About Perry Cline's Involvement in the Feud. Basically, when boiled down, on October 30th, 1872, Perry Cline bought 2 plots of land from the 2 Daniels families. This land was located on the banks of the Tug River on the Pike County, Kentucky side. 3 years later, in 1875, Clines sold these lands to James Vance Senior for $1,200 to be paid in 3 separate installments of $400 each. The first installment was paid, leaving a balance of $800. Before the next 2 installments were given to Cline, Vance sold the property to William Daniels for $1,500. Fearing that Vance would not pay Cline the remaining balance, a lawsuit was filed. In this lawsuit, Cline attempted to have the $800 taken away from the sale of the property to be given to him for the remaining balance owed. It is not clear if Cline won his suit or not. Land conclusion, and a huge thank you. We can well understand why there was anger and frustration over the land. Before this point, we had no idea what was going on in the land in question. To our minds, the Hatfield clan was just taking timber that did not belong to them. We had no idea of the depth that this whole matter would encompass. Now, we wish to tip our hats to and give a huge credit to the Cline Family Association, who are the descendants of Peter Cline. Without their endless research into the land deeds and their other documentation, the truth of the matter would never have been shown the light of day. We cannot express enough our thanks to these wonderful people and encourage everyone to read their blog. We didn't cover everything that they did, just the part that made us go, "What? Oh, wow!" This goes to show that before you purchase land, do your due diligence so that you don't get scammed. And we have to say that their blog really did shed a lot of light on the topic of why there was a possibility that Anderson Hatfield was right and Perry Cline did have an axe to grind against him. And for Perry Cline's part of the story, we can understand why he had such hard feelings and can't help but wonder if it did not spur him forward in seeking justice for the McCoy family. In next week's video, we will continue with the Perry Cline story and how John Wesley Wright and Thomas Talton Hall came into the Hatfield and McCoy feud. What part did the 2 men play that caused the governor of the state of West Virginia to contact the governor of the state of Kentucky? Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the myths and truths of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Please be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.